Okay.
So while we're waiting, Cole and me is in the process of planning some Earth Day celebrations. And one of them will be to show this new DVD. I don't know if you can see it, called Kiss the Ground via Zoom. And we're going to be inviting this group to view it with us. There's my chair right there connecting. So just keep it in mind, it'll be probably on Earth Day or at least during the week of Earth Day. And I think if you like composting, if you like sequestering carbon, I think that you're going to really enjoy this video. Okay.
Thanks.
I agree. It's
Thanks
fabulous.
so much, Mary. Thank you. We'll look forward
Actually,
to.
it's Mary Ann. I don't know why it's coming up as Mary, but
Okay.
it's
Mary
Mary
Ann.
Ann, but no
Thank
problem.
you. Thank you.
Like my dad used to say, you can call me anything as long as you don't call me late for dinner. So
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
the family I grew up in.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like I know it's Kiss the Ground is a great movie. We'll look forward to that announcement. And I just wanted to open up the meeting this evening for the Westchester Jewish Council Greening Roundtable. Thank you, Pam Goldstein and the Westchester Jewish Council for this wonderful opportunity every month to meet and connect. We're very grateful for the support and all the energy behind it from the council. Tonight, I will be introducing our esteemed speaker, Melissa Rotini. Unfortunately, Marty Michael, the chair of the committee, roundtable could not be here this evening, but we look forward to her returning next month. My name is Ellen Weininger. I'm a member of Temple Israel Center and a co-chair of the Green Team there. I'm also Director of Educational Outreach at Grassroots Environmental Education, a science-based environmental health nonprofit. And I have the good fortune of working very often with Westchester County on many different projects. So it is my pleasure to introduce Melissa Rotini, who is the Director of Environmental Management Operations at the Westchester County Department of Environmental Facilities. Melissa is responsible for the oversight of the county's recycling programs and environmental concerns at the solid waste facilities. She joined the county in 2008, and prior to that was the Senior Assistant County Attorney handling a varied and complex caseload, including environmental law matters facing the county. Melissa has also been involved with county-wide initiatives, including the development of the COVID-19 return to work guidance for county departments. And since joining the Department of Environmental Facilities, Melissa has worked to develop new food scrap programs, which is why we're here this evening. And also Melissa is responsible for improving efficiencies and all the educational materials. This is a really exciting program. Melissa has a lot of great information, so I want to turn it over to Melissa, and we'll have time, I would say the last 20 minutes or so, give or take a few for question and answers. And if you could just post your questions in the chat, it'll give an opportunity for Melissa to respond. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I appreciate all of you guys joining us and just having these great meetings with the council. I think this is a wonderful thing that you guys do to sort of keep environmental issues at the forefront and keep everyone informed. It's so important. And one of the things that I'll mention as we go through the slides that I have is that our residents in Westchester really are amazing and great, and they keep our recycling rates up, and they really do help to protect the environment. And it's a wonderful situation to have all of these great groups. So let me just share my presentation slides here. Hopefully I don't have any issues doing this. I shouldn't, but let's just try. All right, we're going to share this, and here we go. Okay, everyone can see that, right? Oh yeah, technology worked. Okay. So hi again, thanks for having me. And let's get started. So we're going to talk about food scrap initiatives, but I'm going to start off with a little general information. I'm sure that everyone on this call is probably already familiar with this, but here we go. I'm sure that you all know that Westchester County has refuse disposal district number 1. To my knowledge, there's no number 2 in the state, but it's a state created district. And we cover the vast majority of the residents in Westchester County. As you can see from the map, the upper quadrants of the county didn't join originally when it was established, but we do get 90% of the county's population. And as always, all of the county can participate in our programs. It's just a matter of whether they have to pay the full reimbursement rate for the cost of the program or whether it's a subsidized program. So if your town is one of the blue towns, you would fall under the district, and the district does subsidize most of these programs, which helps make them affordable. I heard a comment about affordability, and we will get to that in a minute, but we do manage the district as the Department of Environmental Facilities. We have our whole solid waste division that handles all of these programs. It's not just me. We've got great staff and great leaders, including our county executive, George Latimer, who really made these programs that we're going to talk about tonight possible. So as I believe most of you know, all the residential waste from the district municipalities goes to the waste to energy facility. There's no landfilling within the district. And that covers, like we said, about 90% of all Westchester waste. The other municipalities have their choice of what they will do with it. And a lot of them do find waste to energy, but some of them have to still do landfilling and other alternatives for that waste. Only about 12.8% of US waste is disposed through waste to energy. As I'm sure you know, it does create steam and electric that gets reused. So alternatives being what they are, it does provide us with some benefit. It also has a lower greenhouse gas emissions because you're producing a less potent gas there. We are generating less waste. And as I mentioned, a lot of it is due to groups like this one, where the residents are super well informed and they really do care about the environment. So we've reduced waste by about 26.5% in the county over the past several years. Our recycling rate last year is still being developed, but it seems to be in line with what it was in 2019, which was about 52%. The last time there was a national rate released, it was 35%. So Westchester really does quite well for recycling. We really do. We're pretty good across the country. I gotta give everybody on the call some credit. You guys, you're great because you're the ones that make this happen. We can come up with all the programs, but if the residents don't participate and don't take those steps, it means nothing. So thank you. What else can we do though? We can food scrap recycle. So here's the meat of what we want to talk about. Why do we want to food scrap recycle? Well, obviously waste reduction. So about 85,000 tons a year of food waste is generated in this country. And about 22% of all residential solid waste constitutes food waste. What is the first thing you can do? Food banks and groups like yours, religious groups take a lot of the work that's involved in food banking. A lot of that tends to fall to groups like yours and communities that are involved. So again, anything that can be donated, we always want to do that first, because while there is a lot of food waste, the corollary to that is a lot of food insecurity. And so whatever we can do to try and shore that up, we want to do that first. The food waste is also something that the state is really focused on right now. Their Beyond Waste goals to reduce everyone's waste production includes programs for food scrap, because they know that that is a key element, and it is really the what's next of how do we address waste within our nation and within the state. The one thing that I think it's important to note is that the program we're going to talk about tonight, the Residential Food Scrap Transportation and Disposal Program, it doesn't have any impact on the state law that's coming out in 2022. So some of you may be familiar with this. In 2022, the state is going to be implementing the New York State Food Donation and Food Scrap Recycling Act. And what that act does is it has any food generator any entity that generates more than 2 tons of food a week is going to have to take certain steps to be green about it. They're going to have to try and separate anything that they can donate. They're going to have to recycle any inedible food if there's a facility within 25 miles. So if you put a big circle around Westchester, you're going to come across CRP's Sustainable Materials Management site, which is up in Cortland. It's a very small site though. So to the extent that it fills or that it is not accessible, there are things that can be done by those generators to seek, waivers from the state. But we were very careful in crafting this program because we didn't want to have any, negative impact on what's going on with that law. So this is just a residential program. The state law doesn't require municipalities to do anything. So we were trying to do something that would help in the interim and really get it out there, but we didn't want to have any conflict with the state law. So we were very careful in the crafting. So what does our program do? Well, it has a terrible acronym, but we couldn't come up with anything else. So the RIFSTAD program, it assists local municipalities to either create a program or to keep a program running. Again, it was mentioned that cost is a big factor. We are solving that problem left and right. So as you can see, these are the municipalities that currently have food scrap recycling programs. The ones that are italicized have joined the program. There are a few that aren't listed here because we're not final with the contracts, or they're not final with their drop-off site, so they're really not in place yet, but these are actually in place. And you'll see that there are two that are bold, Pelham and White Plains. Those are bold because they did not have a program before we did this. And I won't say why, I don't know all of their reasons, but we have to believe that at some point, cost may have been a factor. And that was why we really came up with this, was to try and set that aside. So White Plains, as I think was mentioned before we started, it is a very large city, and they're getting off the ground with it, and hopefully it will be very successful. But again, this program is completely voluntary. The law didn't change to require food scrapping for any local municipality, but it is a voluntary intermunicipal agreement program. So just like the organic yard waste program that many municipalities participate in, you can choose to participate in this program. And what it does is it subsidizes the cost for the transportation so that the food can get to a composting location. And that's important because that's really the biggest expense related to food scrap collections. So how does it work? If you have a program, you can join. There's really no change that has to happen. If you've got a curbside, if you've got a drop off, all the accepted items remain the same because almost every program had been going up to Ulster County. And CRP, the Sustainable Materials Management site, is using the same guidelines as Ulster County. So there's really a lot of continuity with what can and cannot be accepted. If you don't have a program and you want to start one in your municipality, you can establish either a curbside or a drop-off program. We have staff available in my office who can help with grants if you need to apply to the state for grants. And then what happens? Well, we've contracted with Suburban, and Suburban can either go to your drop-off location and collect your toters, or if you have a curbside collection vehicle, you can bring your materials directly to Suburban's transfer station. Or if you really want to save a lot of money, but you don't have curbside collection, you can get your toters onto a pickup truck, into a box truck, whatever means your DPW has, and you can bring them to Suburban's transfer station. And that does have a price difference, which I'll get to in a second. But all of your scheduling and your billing goes through the county, so you don't have to worry about negotiating the contract with any carter. Municipal contracts have to be put out to bid. So you would have to bid it out, but you don't have to do any of that. If you want to join the IMA, the board passes the IMA, your executive in your town or city signs off on it, it comes to us and we process everything. It works the same way as your regular MSW collections or any other program that the county offers. So what's great about this program? Well, the money, you can see the big buckets. It's the same or less as garbage. So your municipality can take that food waste and they can throw it in the garbage and they're going to pay $29.83 a ton. Or they can collect it in a toter and we'll come pick it up and they're going to pay $29.83 a ton. So it is exactly the same price. It is highly, highly subsidized, but we did that under the leadership of County Executive Latimer because he supported this program and we really wanted to make it happen. So we did. So it is highly subsidized. So your program startup costs for a drop-off program, it's signage, it's locking toters, it's transportation for the drop-off, but we cover that transportation cost under this program. So under the DEC grant, you can get up to 50% reimbursement for any materials that are used 100% for recycling. So if you buy those toters and you submit under the grant, you can get half of the cost back. If you have to make a sign, you can submit under the grant and potentially get half of the cost back. You have to identify a location and it has to be signed off on by DEC, but it's not a full permitting process. Most of the locations, obviously I can't speak for what DEC will say, but most of the locations have been deemed, waived sites, and they approve them, and they're all over the place. So people have them in DPW yards and people have them in parking lots. There's some concerns about the cost of staffing them, but they really don't need to be 24-hour staffed once the program gets rolling. You want, as volunteers, if possible, to come and help people just learn about contamination and what needs to go in and what shouldn't go in. But after that, once the program gets rolling, having it somewhere where there are people around in case there's a question, like a DPW yard, is really the most ideal. And then you just want to check those toters from time to time. But this program really is cost neutral or potentially cost saving. And I say that because if you can get your toters or your collection vehicle to Suburban's yard, it's less than the cost of MSW. So it's about half the price per ton of MSW if you can get your materials there. So it really is a very cost-effective program. And I'm sorry, I can't see the comments, so I don't know if there's anything directly about this coming up in the chat, but I will try and figure out how to do that as we go. So what can you include? You can include anything that's currently included in a food scrap program. You're talking, post scraps. So after you have your dinner, if you have some left over, those can go in. You're talking anything from your prep. That's the greatest stuff. When you have those peels and the little ends that don't work for what you're cooking, all of those items can go right in. That we do take biodegradable products, but we do ask that they're BPI certified because not all biodegradable products are made the same. Again, so we are partnering with Ulster County and with CRP Sustainable Materials Management at this time. Suburban determines the ultimate location subject to county approval, and those are the two locations that we are using. So some of the material is staying right here in Westchester, which is great because when you're dealing with food scraps, there is a lot of what we call in the solid waste industry leachate, garbage water. There is a lot of it in food scraps, and it is heavy, and we want to transport it as little as possible. So obviously, if we can backyard compost, that you're transporting it the least, but not everyone can do that, and it's not feasible in all locations. So we are taking the materials and we are combining all the municipalities. So rather than going up one truck at a time, the county has provided a large trailer that everything can be placed into from all the different municipalities, so that if it does have to go up to Ulster, at least it is, reducing it as best we can. Oh, and I wanted to mention this. I love this little bit. So we're also opening a compost and education facility on Earth Day, where people can come and learn about backyard composting and learn about, composting on a small scale. So if it were something that your municipality wanted to incorporate food scraps into, potential compost programs that they're considering in town, further reducing the greenhouse gases, and we're going to have tours and we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff, and we're super excited about it. And that's opening this Earth Day. So I put a little picture in there for you on that. Let's see. These are all the programs that we do with the county. So I'm sure you guys are already familiar with a lot of these, but I wanted to just put this up in case there were any questions that were maybe not on food scrapping tonight. I can answer anything for you if you have other questions. And if you have questions and you're like, I don't feel like asking, I'm shy, I don't want to type, I can't think of it right now, this is all the contact information for us. You can call the recycling helpline. They have all kinds of information. You can check our Facebook page or our website, or you can just email me directly if you want, and I can answer any questions or get those answers for you. So, oh, I see chats. Hold on. Let me see if I can answer these. Oh, Pelham, yes, you're having a drop-off site ribbon cutting. That is great. Super excited about that. Yes, you were bolded and italicized. Yay. That is great. Yes. And I do know that Pelham Manor is also sharing that site. It is a great program that we are very excited to welcome you on. As far as the expansion of the residential composting program, the way that it was passed by the Board of Legislators and submitted, frankly, is just a residential program at this time. Residential composting turning into restaurants or clubs or commercial composting, it's a large difference in the amount that's produced. And this is a very, very heavily subsidized program. And as I mentioned, we don't want to have any interference with the state requirements that are coming out, but we are in the county working on, trying to come up with some solutions for where and how commercial entities can process their food waste. But as of right now, this program is strictly residential. Okay. Oh. I don't think that Greenberg has joined yet. I see that question about has Greenberg joined the program. I'm not sure that they have, but they've got a setup with the Nature Center, so they might have a different arrangement with them as far as how they compost. But they may also be considering it. We're still getting them rolling in every day, and we have some that are in the process going over the legal review that's required and getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted and all of those fun things before they start. Anybody else?
Can I ask a question?
I don't know who that is, but I guess.
So I'm the one who wrote the Greenberg thing. So is there a reason why Greenberg should join with your program, or,
So I know you said you wrote the Greenberg. How do they process their compost?
I take it to Anthony Veteran Park, and they have a bunch of bins. It looks similar to the photo that you had of drop off your compost here.
Right.
So
they truck it to Ulster. Someone just wrote Judy. Thank you,
I
Judy.
see that.
Yeah, I mean, they could, I don't know if they may be considering it. They may have another plan in mind. They might be waiting for a contract to expire. I'm not 100% sure why or what they're considering. Why would they want to join it? Well, depending on who they contract with to take it to Ulster, if they're contracting with a private hauler, as I mentioned, it's very well subsidized. But Greenberg has a lot of locations, and under this program, we can collect from one drop-off location. So that's the only glitch, is if you have multiple locations, you just have to get the toters to one spot for them to be collected, which in most, if you were going to have a few toters in this location, a few toters in that location, and you have a DPW that is already on site, obviously subject to union contract rules. But if it falls within their regular duties, they would just need to take those toters and put them on either a pickup truck or in a box truck. Greenberg's program might just be so large because of the size of the municipality. Yeah. That might be why they're still trying to figure out whether or not it's something that works for them. But because they're also so large, it may just be that they're cost effective with their current program. I'd have to talk to Greenberg about it to give you a real answer, but those are my educated guesses.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to know if I should be reaching out and, encouraging Paul Feiner to join the program, but I know they do have multiple drop-off sites, so that just may be what it is.
Yeah, I mean, but certainly, like I said, if they have staff that can get those to one location, then we can certainly pick it up and they can participate in the program. And if they have questions on it and you speak with anyone on that, on their team, on his team, you can certainly have them reach out to me, and we can go over it and see if it's something that we can work with them to have a cost savings if there is one to be had.
Thank you.
So there's a question here from Karen. Does the compost come back to the communities? So no, it doesn't. The compost that's made, it belongs to Ulster. They go through the process. It's a long process, or CRP, whichever site it ultimately goes to. So it's not a return to the communities, because also it'd be hard to figure out how much compost gets made from each community's deposit, because it all does break down. So unfortunately, that's not something that really is going to be possible. But if you come to compost it, we'll give you a little tiny bag to take home. I don't know how much help that would be. Maybe a houseplant.
I have a question. I have a question. It's Marlene.
Oh, hi, Marlene.
Hi, how are you? I just, I'm a little bit confused, I have to admit. We obviously have started a big program here in Mamaroneck and Larchmont.
Mhm.
But I'm not exactly sure how it all fits with the county. If it, this, obviously we're houses of worship, but you're talking, this is really just for community. So I'm not exactly sure what we're talking about, to be quite frank.
Well, it is just a residential program right now. Larchmont Mamaroneck, I believe that we've been talking to them too about this program. As far as the houses of worship, unfortunately, that does fall under commercial. It's just the way that this initial program was raised. But again, just because you're a house of worship, you also have access to individuals and residents within the municipality, and you can encourage them to, participate from the municipality. But unfortunately, at this time, this program is not designed for commercial entities.
But then exactly when you're talking about people having backyard composting.
Yep.
But I would think that the point of picking it up, from everybody in the community is to have, sort of as much as possible, so that makes it worthwhile for the community to actually, like, we're trying to get people to pick it up at our houses rather than having to take it somewhere, because that diminishes the value. People just are not doing that as much. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what we're saying, what we're aiming for.
Well, you can certainly join this program with a curbside collection. If Scarsdale is a member, they have curbside collection.
Right.
It's certainly not, it's actually even more affordable, because if you have a curbside collection and you take that sealed truck over to Suburban's yard to tip it, and Suburban doesn't have to come pick it up from your drop-off location, it's $15 a ton. I mean,
Right.
even the best programs in Westchester are, 5 tons, they're not, when you're talking residential, it's so affordable. That certainly, Mamaroneck, Larchmont, if they go curbside, they can bring it directly and benefit from that reduced price, making it even less expensive, half the price. So it's $15 up to the first, for the first, I think it's 20 tons in a year. So it's half the price of MSW. So it really is, very affordable. And it's something curbside or drop off can participate in. So I'm just looking here. Someone wants to talk to me about Valhalla. Certainly email me. We can talk about that.
Yeah, hi, this is Mary Ann Nadler, and I'm working with a group of medical students who are forming a new environmental health club at New York Medical College. Now, New York Medical College is a little bit different than a lot of medical colleges because they have on-campus dormitories for the medical students. So I was wondering if we could talk sometime, or if you can just tell me straight out, no, this won't work, about getting New York Medical College and the people who are living in dorms and apartments there to participate in composting. We could use this new group to get things moving.
Yeah, so what I would suggest for them is, well, obviously they wouldn't be eligible for this program. Composted, which I mentioned in that last slide, is going to have, tours available for students to learn about composting. And we could certainly work with, if they wanted to set up, a composting location at the college, we could most certainly, work with them. And we hired, we have a very great composter who is going to be managing the facility. He's worked in the city and he's worked in upstate New York. He's excellent. So he is going to be actually doing the tours and the educational component at Composted. And I'm sure that we can have them come, and we can certainly connect on that, Marianne.
Let's talk offline, because I know this is a unique situation, but I'm looking at not having a situation where people are composting in the back of their dorms, where it's a collection where they either drop it off someplace or it's collected.
Okay.
Mary Ann?
Yeah, I'll email
sorry.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just take note of Melissa's email address on the screen.
Yeah, I
and
have
you'll
it.
be able to reach her. And I see that Jane's hand has been up for a while, and Jane has a question. about.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ellen. I just typed it into the chat, but how often is curbside pickup? Does it work the same way as newspaper recycling and commingled recycling? Is that how it works?
So curbside collection would be determined by your municipality. So we don't do, the county itself doesn't do collection at homes. That would be your municipality, but they could collect it once a week. They could collect it. It would depend on how they wanted to collect it. You know, there's certain requirements that they would need. I don't know what municipality you're in, but you know,
Rochelle.
okay. So yeah, so they would need a sealed garbage truck to do a curbside collection. You know, I have been speaking to New Rochelle about this program, as I'm sure you're aware. They are undergoing a reformation of their DPW yard. They're doing some, so they're making some changes there. But I have spoken to them about this program, and I will say I received a positive response, but they again are in the midst of reconfiguring things, and I think need to finish that before they can get too far in anything. But they would decide if they could do a curbside collection. They would decide on the time frame, you know, the day, and but a curbside collection would essentially work the same way as a commingled collection, where you know it would be your DPW that would come by. You would have a designated container of some nature that they would collect from you if they were to do curbside. But if you're interested,
they would have one physical site where they put it and Suburban Carting would pick it up from there.
if it were curbside, they would probably just drive the truck directly to Suburban's yard and tip it there, because you wouldn't want to store it on site. It wouldn't make any sense to collect it curbside and then take it to one location. The drop-off locations are really what Suburban would come to collect from. But if your municipality started a curbside collection, they would probably take it directly and they would tip it Suburban, and then Suburban would bulk it with all of the other, toters that they've collected before it went anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Just trying to go back to the questions. It says, how soon do you think food scrap? Oh, how soon do we think they will be handled in Westchester rather than Ulster? So to the extent that there's space at the CRP facility, Sustainable Materials Management, they call it, over in Cortland, we are using some space there. So it's not all going to Ulster, but again, that site has, I believe it's a 5,000 cubic yards cap on it. So it's not a very large site, but we are trying to keep it, there just aren't places in Westchester that are doing large scale food composting. Ulster really has a big area. I mean, that's really what it boils down to is sort of land masses. Where does the finished compost go? So Marianne, not Mary, I know it says Mary, but it's Marianne. The finished compost, it goes to wherever it's sold to. So, so the sites that take it and do the processing, they resell it. So Ulster resells it, and I assume that Sustainable Materials Management / CRP will also be doing the same. The new compost demo site. Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Judy. The site is across from the HMRF in Valhalla. So if you are dropping anything off at the HMRF and you're driving up and you say, what's going on over there? Composted, that's what's going on over there.
What is the HMRF?
Oh, the HMRF is our household material recovery facility where you can take all of your household chemicals. Oh, okay.
No, but I didn't know the.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were softballing.
And yeah.
I appreciate the softball. Thank you, James. Yes, we call it the HMRF for short. Everything has an acronym in solid waste, as I've come to learn over the past several years.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I got all the questions. If I've missed anybody.
There are two more. One was actually about the hazardous materials collection days and also e-waste collection.
Okay, so what is the question about the household material days?
There were usually designated days seasonally or periodically by the county.
Yes.
So that residents could bring some of their materials that really cannot be in the general waste stream, cannot be
right. Oh, you just as the question just went, are we still doing those? We are still doing them. We're looking to do one in May. With COVID, we had some at the end of last year, and we're still working out dates, but we're looking at May right now. But pretty much anything you can bring to an HRD, which is the household recycling days, you can bring to the household material recovery facility in Valhalla. So you can make an appointment at a time that's convenient for you instead of waiting at one of the recycling days. And you can bring pretty much everything, is also acceptable there. And you can eyeball compost it while you're there. And then you said there were two. So that was one. What was the second question?
The e-waste, electronic waste, same thing.
Same thing, same
Yeah.
exact thing. And we also have pods in 26 municipalities. So some of the municipalities also have in their recycling yards where you can bring e-waste there. But also, yes, the HMRF also accepts e-waste all the time. And then I see one more. Beth Rosen asked, is the idea to bring the compostable bag and drop the whole bag off? Yes, you can do that at the drop-off location. You can take your entire bag of compostables, or if you don't want to use a compostable bag, you can also, just clean the container out. That's completely up to you. And I think,
Melissa,
yes.
does the program have a name, one name? What
It's
should
the
we call it? If we're referring to it, what should we call it?
It's the Residential Food Scrap Transportation Disposal Program. And if you're still awake, it's got a terrible acronym. It's RUFSTAD. So it sounds like a dog barking. I'm sorry, it was all we could come up with.
RUFSTAD?
RUFSTAD, yes. It's I don't know. It's the Residential Food Scrap Transportation and Disposal. We just took the letters and
Okay.
stuck them together.
Okay.
I've tried to rearrange them in various
Okay.
ways. It didn't work.
Okay.
Mary Ann, your hand is up too.
Yes, I have a question about if we have food waste and lawn waste that has had pesticides or herbicides in it, grown in that, and we compost it in these facilities, does that reduce the levels of these toxic chemicals so that it's safer to use as compost?
So,
Do we
really
have any
depends-
data on that?
I don't have any specific data. I would think it would depend on specifically what's used. I will say that when you are composting, it gets to a very high temperature for an extended period of time to try and kill off, obviously, anything that could cause a problem. I don't know. I'm not familiar with any data on the specific question of the reduction in any pesticides, though. So
Thank
I won't guess and be wrong.
Okay, thanks.
Someone has asked about composting pet waste. At this time, we do not have a plan for that. I imagine that it does, that there is a fair amount of that. That's the question. Just says, is there any plan to compost pet waste, which I imagine contributes. I imagine it does. There is no plan at the current time for pet waste, but I will take that note, Elizabeth, and I will think on it. Yes, Marlene, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
You can have very little garbage if you compost and recycle correctly. Thank you.
Yes. So the other point to that is we're running out of dirt. Okay, we're running out of real soil and dirt.
Right.
And if we don't start composting and recycling these materials back into our soil, we're not going to have any food. So if it seems like a pain to do this, please think again if you want to eat in the next couple of years. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Melissa?
Yes.
Maybe this is the obvious. This was a question that I fielded. The difference between composting at home versus the food scrap recycling, because there are distinctions between those two. So I think it might be helpful to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you're composting at home, you're not going to be using any compostables, and you're not going to probably want to put bones in that. So there are some differences if you're participating, but I would say this. If you're composting at home, you're also reducing the greenhouse gas. You're not carrying it anywhere. But these programs it's an ebb and a flow. So if you could do both, that would, if you wanted to super separate, if you wanted to be a superstar separator, I just coined that. I'll have to make some S's. If you want to be a superstar separator and compost in your backyard, and then take those things that you just can't compost in a backyard and take them to a local drop off, I mean, then you're really getting the best of both worlds, because, as has been asked, you get to keep that compost and, the soil benefits. Yes, it's food. It's also a better grass quality, which leads to a better tree quality, which is better for the ecosystem. I mean, it's everything. It's all around. So, there are a lot of benefits on all ends of it. But yes, there are some differences. You can compost some heavier items, I'll call them, in a commercial compost site. Someone is asking about plastic film recycling bins. Yes, I get this complaint a lot. A lot of stores have removed the plastic film recycling bins, and they are saying COVID. The problem with telling me is that I do not have the authority to enforce that law. That is a state law, and they did not provide the authority to the local planning units, which we are for the county, to enforce it. So we have made several calls up to the state about it, and we have encouraged others to also make the calls and report the locations where they are not there, to see if they receive some sort of waiver, or to see if they should be put back in. But yes, I have heard that. I don't have the authority to enforce the law, but if you've got a high amount of plastic film, I would encourage you to try and take it to a bag location. I know you may be having an issue finding one, Paul, and I'm sorry to hear that. But they are still out there. You can try calling the recycling helpline and see if they know of any in your area. This has come up several times, so they may be sort of keeping track of where people have found them. Marianne?
Yeah, so I was just putting in the chat. Congregation Colony in White Plains has an ongoing plastic film recycling program going on with Trex and Trex decking. They take the plastic, we collect the plastic, we take it to certain sites like Whole Foods, Stop and Shop, Home Depot, and a few others that still collect it. You can bring it to us, because when we get our 500 pounds of plastic film, we get a bench from Trex. Okay.
Oh.
Now you can, a free bench, we already have one. And you guys can start this at your own congregations or schools or whatever. I'm happy to chat with anybody on this. It's a slightly different issue about than the composting, but it's very relevant. So Trex actually takes this film plastic and wood fibers, and they make it into decking and plastic and benches and tables and stuff for outside. So it's an excellent program. I do know off the top of my head that if you don't want to bring it to Colony, I know that's a schlep for some people. Melissa, you may not be aware of that word. Although
I am, yes.
Right.
Thank you.
If you don't want to schlep it to Colony, you can, I know Whole Foods, Stop and Shop, and Home Depot are three that I remember. And we would appreciate your plastic film, because when we get our 500 pounds, we get another bench. So we have a large property, benches would be nice. We do know that these groups have a contract with Trex. And so that plastic film is sent to Trex. And there's a whole video on it. If you Google them, they'll show you how to do it. I'm also happy to help people set up their own plastic film recycling. But you do have to have a couple of dedicated people to pull this off. But yeah, it's not feel good. I understand that, Judy, I get that, but this is actually being done. And so I like to support Trex, because they are trying to do something. Like I will, same reason I do the composting, we all need to do something. So anyway, that's just out there. Our
Mary,
collection.
Paul, thank you. I was familiar with the Trex program. It's great to hear you guys are part of it. I will try to maybe connect with you on that as well and learn more.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great. So anyway, if you want to bring it to Colony, the collection bins are outside our gym, okay? And you can all email me or call me, and I'll talk to you more about it.
That's a great program. That's wonderful. Judy, when the stores collected plastic bags, I understand from your comments, you didn't trust it, that was a state requirement that they had to do it. So the state is monitoring it. The program still exists. It's still a requirement. It hasn't been paused as best as I can tell during COVID, even though many of the stores have unilaterally paused it, is my understanding.
So, Melissa, we know if we participate in the composting program with Westchester, there's no way of us getting like some of the compost, like for our own gardens. We have a vegetable garden at Colony right now, and we would be happy with any free compost, anything else.
Yeah, unfortunately, the way that it works is that, just the economies of it is that the locations that take it do sell it as a product.
Great. Well, they're doing something good with it, so that makes me happy. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, this has really been wonderful, Melissa. We've learned a lot, and I'm sure more questions will surface after this evening. So I suggest that people make note of Melissa's email address at westchestergov.com, mjr9@westchestergov.com, if any new questions surface. And certainly there's a great helpline number, 914-813-5425. And then I just want to thank Melissa for being here and educating everyone and amplifying this very important initiative that the county has launched. The food scrap program. We can be ambassadors to our communities, encourage people to participate if they're not already participating in a municipality that already has launched a program. And then, of course, advocate for one in your community if you don't have it. And thank you to everyone for being here this evening. It's great to see everyone. And thank you again, Pam Goldstein and Westchester Jewish Council for making this all possible. And last but not least, we look forward to seeing Marty Michael come back next month when we meet again. And for everyone, have a wonderful evening. And again, many thanks for this really great and enlightening presentation, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Pam and Ellen.
Thank you all.